You remember the exact moment you realized you didn't fit in. Maybe you were sitting alone at lunch while everyone else laughed at jokes you didn't understand. Maybe you were the kid who preferred books over basketball. Or maybe you just looked around one day and thought, why does everyone else seem to know the rules except me? That feeling never really goes away, does it? You grow up, you get older, you learn how to smile at the right times and nod when you're supposed to. But deep down, there's still this quiet voice whispering, you're not like them. And here's what nobody tells you about that feeling. It's not a flaw, it's a signal. See, most people who feel different since childhood aren't actually weird or broken. They're just wired to see the world through a different lens. While other kids were learning to follow the crowd, you were learning to question it. While they were copying each other, you were trying to understand why things worked the way they did. You weren't fitting in because you were busy figuring things out. But society doesn't reward that when you're young. Schools reward conformity. Playgrounds reward popularity. And when you don't naturally do what everyone else does, you start believing something's wrong with you. So you adapt. You learn to wear a mask, not a fake one, but a functional one. You study people like they're a foreign language. You memorize social cues. You practice laughing at the right moments. And eventually, you get pretty good at blending in. But the mask gets heavy, because every time you pretend to care about something you don't, every time you fake excitement for things that bore you, every time you sit in a group and feel completely alone, that gap between who you are and who you're pretending to be gets wider. And that's exhausting. Here's the psychology behind it. When you feel different from a young age, your brain develops differently. You become hyper-aware. You notice things others miss. The way someone's smile doesn't reach their eyes. The unspoken tension in a room. The patterns everyone else ignores. You're not imagining it. You're just more tuned in. But that gift comes with a cost. Because when you see the world more clearly, you also feel it more deeply. Other people's words hit harder. Rejection stings longer. And loneliness doesn't just feel bad. It feels like proof that you were right all along. That you really are different. That you really don't belong. So you start looking for your people. You search for someone who gets it, someone who sees the world the way you do. And when you finally find them, even just one person, it changes everything. Because suddenly you realize you're not broken. You were just looking in the wrong places. The truth is, people who feel different aren't rare. They're just scattered. Think about the artists, the inventors, the writers, the creators. Most of them felt like outsiders growing up. Most of them spent years wondering what was wrong with them. And then one day, they stopped trying to fit in and started leaning into what made them different. That's when everything shifted. Because the same traits that made you feel isolated as a kid, the same things that made you feel weird or awkward or out of place, those are the exact traits that make you interesting as an adult. Your ability to think differently becomes creativity. Your sensitivity becomes empathy. Your refusal to follow the crowd becomes leadership. And that feeling of being on the outside, that becomes perspective. But here's the hard part. You have to stop waiting for permission to be yourself. You have to stop hoping that one day you'll wake up and finally feel normal. Because normal is just another word for average. And you were never meant to be average. The people who changed the world didn't do it by fitting in. They did it by standing out. Not because they wanted attention, but because they couldn't ignore what they saw. They couldn't pretend to care about things that didn't matter. They couldn't stay quiet when they had something to say. And neither can you. So if you've spent your whole life feeling like you're on the outside looking in, maybe it's time to stop trying to get inside. Maybe it's time to build something better out here. Something real. Something that doesn't require you to shrink or hide or pretend. Because the world doesn't need another person trying to blend in. It needs you, the real you. The one you've been hiding because you thought it was too much or too weird or too different. That version of you, that's the one worth showing up as. So stop apologizing for being different. Stop waiting to be understood by people who were never meant to understand you. And start looking for the ones who do. They're out there, and they're looking for you too. You were never the problem. You were just early.